Hello everyone, my name is Cubits, and welcome to how to make Skyrim Standard Edition look better than Skyrim Special Edition. Now, the idea for this video came about when I tried Skyrim Special Edition for the first time a couple days ago. I've been playing and modding Skyrim for many years, and through that period of time, I've come up with a compilation of different graphical mods that I use for my game to improve the overall aesthetic, make things like lighting and textures better, overall increasing Skyrim's graphical fidelity. But one thing I realized when I tried Special Edition for the first time is how god-awful it looks in comparison to the mods that I use. Now, it's possible right now you're rolling your eyes, oh, this is just another PC elitist, but in reality, I got just about the same frame rate running the mods that I did on the Standard Edition as just vanilla Special Edition. I wasn't sure if I wanted to move on to the Special Edition just yet, and playing that game with its subpar graphics really hit home how much I appreciate things like E&Bs and texture mods. Now, there are some graphical mods out for Special Edition, but a lot of them are works in progress, and most importantly, there is no script extender yet released for it. What that means is that some of my favorite mods and some of the biggest overhauls just can't exist yet on the Special Edition. And so, if you're like me, you're probably going to settle for the Standard Edition for now. But if you choose to do so, then I have a list of performance-friendly, very easy to install graphical mods, and an E&B. Now, please keep in mind, guys, as I go over the list of mods in this video, I am focusing on things that are performance-friendly. I know there are tons of mods out there that are absolutely beautiful, but there are three particular goals that we're looking for in this video. 1, make it look better than Skyrim Special Edition. 2, make sure that it's fairly performance-friendly. And 3, make sure that it's lore-friendly. I think that the crazy graphical retextures are pretty awesome. There are some pretty neat hair designs on the Nexus as well, but to me it just doesn't really fit into what I perceive as a Nordic fantasy game. So as much as those mods are the bomb, I'm gonna try to make your Skyrim look like Skyrim, just a better Skyrim than it was before. So without further ado, let's get into the list of mods that are gonna make your PC Standard Edition look way better than the Special Edition. First of all, we have a Midian-born Book of Silence. This is a mod that is comprised of retextures for armor and weapons and creatures, and several other miscellaneous things. Now, one of the very first things that I noticed upon trying the Special Edition for the first time is that the textures look nearly just as terrible as the Standard Edition vanilla textures. The armor and the weapons look super splotchy. There was hardly any detail on things like the fur and the plates. And if there was, it was just too blurry to really see. A Midian-born Book of Silence fixes those exact problems. Basically, it improves the resolution while adding a little bit extra detail. Some of the armor pieces that are pretty desaturated, and some that just look straight up washed out, those get a little bit of a touch-up. It is definitely lore-friendly, and it comes in a variety of different resolutions depending on what your PC specs can handle. Overall, pretty much anybody that plays Skyrim and has the ability to install texture mods probably has this one installed. What a Midian-born does not actually cover, though, is clothing. The next mod that I have for you that does cover clothing is called RUSTIC Clothing. This, in my opinion, is my favorite clothing mod. Not only does it come in a variety of different resolutions, but it also adds a lot of immersive detail and really brightens up some of the dour outfits. On top of that, there's even a plugin that you can install that will diversify and improve the children's clothing in the game. Rustic clothing in particular is something that I feel like I need to have in my game. This is particularly due to the fact whenever you get into a conversation with an NPC, you're forced to stare at them for probably more than just a few seconds, meaning you're going to notice how ugly and splotchy and undetailed their clothing is. Not only does this mod make the game look better, but in my opinion also increases immersion. Now, on the topic of having conversations with NPCs, clothing isn't the only thing that gets distracting now that we're in 2016 and we have higher expectations for graphics. Another thing that I found pretty distracting were the dead-looking, kind of smudgy pupils. Now, with high-quality eyes, a mod that retextures all of the eyes in the game, you'll find eyes that are much brighter and much more focused. Even though they're brighter and more focused, though, they are still heavily based on the design in the vanilla game. They're really not too fantastical, they're pretty realistic. As realistic as you can get a dark elf's eyes to look. But it's not just eyes that get distracting. I also recommend the No More Blocky Faces mod. In vanilla Skyrim, there's this really odd detail on the NPC's faces, this bizarre blocky polygon-esque design that I'm sure was not totally intentional. Basically what this mod does is it smooths out the model on the face, particularly in the chin and nose region. So those lumpy bits won't be quite as distracting because they won't be there anymore. So we've covered the face and the eyes, but we also still have to cover the hair. AOF Believable Hair is a must-have mod, especially if you have something installed that improves any element of NPCs visually. The reason being is because vanilla hair basically looks like Play-Doh. Now this becomes even more noticeable when you have retextures or remodel mods for these NPCs. And AOF basically just touches up the hair a little bit to make it look a bit more realistic, give it a little bit more color, and some detail where you can see a little bit of the strands of hair. It's certainly not perfect. There are certainly mods that will make hair look prettier, but one of the nice things about AOF is that it's very, very lore friendly. I don't really have a huge problem with anime mods, but in a Nordic fantasy, to me at least, they're a little bit distracting. And now let's move on to the environment. This next mod is probably going to be the biggest one that you'll install. It's named NOBLESKYRIM Mod HD 2K. This is a complete and total overhaul retexture of all of the environmental elements in Skyrim. So what that means is things like barrels will be retextured, buildings will be retextured, even simple items like gems will be retextured. Just about everything that isn't attached to a person or a creature gets retextured through this mod. And one of the really cool things about this mod is that it offers you a performance-friendly version. My GPU isn't terrible, but especially considering we're getting close to 2017, I don't think many people would consider it to be very good. And I've encountered a couple problems running the full mod of this particular retexture. However, the Performance Edition to me works perfectly. Not to mention the improvement from installing this mod is honestly pretty mind-blowing. In particular, noticing the difference between the roads and the wood, that truly did blow me away. Even in Skyrim Special Edition, wood houses look really splotchy and disgusting. This mod fixes all of that, even down to things like flowers. Now, only with this handful of mods, we already have nearly all the bases covered when it comes to retexturing. However, we have not yet touched upon water. Realistic Waters 2 is definitely my favorite water mod. One of the reasons I like it is just because I like the aesthetic of the water design. Unlike a mod like Pure Waters, the water still looks like it has things like algae in it. Like the riverways could be a little bit muddy. And one of the coolest things about this mod is that it adds a handful of little extra features that really add a nice touch. One of these features doesn't actually have anything to do with graphics at all. It adds a bunch of different sound effects depending on the location of the water. So if you're right next to a waterfall, then you'll hear a very loud waterfall noise. If you're exploring near the Arctic Ocean, you'll hear the crackling of ice blocks. Maybe you're exploring through a swamp, in which case the sound that the water makes will be much different from the ocean. It gives a uniqueness and an immersion to every single location depending on the body of water. And also, this is a setting that can be modified. If you don't like how loud something is, you can actually change that. Visually, one of the most impressive things about Realistic Water is the fact that it changes the current depending on which water source you're looking at. So in the vanilla game, most water sources look about identical. The waves in the ocean look just about the same as the waves in rivers, lakes, ponds, etc. They all look just about the same. Realistic Waters adds a lot of differentiation. So marsh ponds will be very stagnant. They'll even be a little discolored. Some coastlines will actually have waves added to them. And rivers will flow in a much more believable way. So not only does it make the water look better, it also makes the water look more realistic. Overall, it's a win-win scenario. Now, the last mod that we have on this list before we transition into the ENB is called Ultimate HD Fire. This might just be me, but whenever I enter a room or a cave and there's a source of fire, my eye is kind of naturally drawn to it. Now, when you have a really ugly, boring, low-resolution design of fire, that's not necessarily a good thing. But when you install this mod, you get a lot more realistic design flames. They're a little bit more colorful, a little bit more of a reddish orange, and they look so much better to the eyes. If you're like me and fire is something that you notice, then it's worthwhile giving it a download. Now, before we transition into the E&B that I recommend most, please keep in mind that each of these mods have different settings for the amount of quality that you want to add to your game. Just so you know, most textures in the vanilla game are 1K resolution, so if you want them to look better, then 2K resolution doubles that quality. And 4K resolution obviously doubles it again. But I will say that 4K is something that can get to the point where it will stress your PC. This all depends on how many mods you have installed, what you prioritize, and the specs of your particular PC. I recommend that you mix and match and try different combinations, because sometimes, even though you'll have a frame drop, it might just mean that you need to install the performance version of a particular mod instead of just uninstalling it altogether. I'd also like to point out that there are tons of retexture mods out there. What I'm giving you right now are the bare bones. Some people find it really important to retexture things like rugs. Some people find it really important to retexture things like dragons. Rugs are actually covered under the NOBLESKYRIM mod. Dragons are actually covered under the Amedian-born Book of Silence. But they're probably not going to be quite as flashy as a lot of those individual mods. This particular mod set gives you a lot of options for what you want to specialize in when it comes to textures. You can pretty easily install over these mods with a mod like Detailed Rugs. But I'm not going to list off like 30 different retexture mods for very specific objects. And I definitely know that there are better retexture mods out there, but these strike a perfect balance between quality, performance, and being lore-friendly. So now that we got that out of the way, let's move on to my favorite E&B, the E&B that I think is the best looking while also being the best performance-friendly. I recommend to you SKYLIGHT E&B. If you have a bunch of retexture mods installed, and you're looking at my game and you don't have an E&B installed, then you're probably noticing a massive difference in the quality of the video. E&Bs modify a variety of different graphical elements. I would be lying if I knew exactly how it all worked. But essentially, it improves things like post-processing, things like lighting effects, things like coloration, just generally touches up your game to look a lot better. With an E&B installed, you'll notice that the quality of the textures seems to almost go up. So if you want your textures to look as good as mine, then an E&B is definitely recommended. Now, why do I recommend SKYLIGHT E&B in particular? Well, first of all, it's a pretty realistic overhaul of the lighting and coloration in Skyrim. None of the changes look really drastic or unrealistic. It just makes the world look a little bit more vibrant. And one of the biggest problems I have with Skyrim Special Edition is the fact that it still has that really ugly color palette. It's this really muted, grayish, unsaturated color scheme. It has an aesthetic, but it looks so bad. It was bearable when it came out, and some people might really like that. But to me, it's so incredibly distracting, and it makes textures that didn't look that bad to begin with look absolutely terrible. SKYLIGHT makes Skyrim look like a realistic fantasy world. It doesn't increase the graphical fidelity that much, but it does increase it just enough to make it look pretty. The way my game runs with this particular E&B installed is it might drop me max 10 frames from what I would have originally. And considering my graphics card isn't all that great, that's actually not too bad. E&Bs definitely can't work on all computers. If your computer just isn't really designed for gaming, it might not run it very well. But if you have any computer that is labeled to be gaming related, then chances are it'll probably run all of these mods just fine. And as you can see on screen, here are a few comparisons between my Standard Edition setup and Vanilla Special Edition. Yeah, Special Edition added some nice lighting effects, but overall, it just looks like Skyrim with drunk goggles. In my opinion, the focus that they added looked really, really bad. It's still got that really, really ugly, desaturated look. And holy moly, the textures look terrible. They just look terrible. I don't even know if they improved them very much. And yeah, there are graphical mods available for Skyrim Special Edition, but there aren't a whole bunch. And I just thought, why bother trying to make something different look better when you have something better already? That being said, I am looking forward to the coming months because I think that there will be a lot that will be achieved in terms of Skyrim Special Edition modding. Eventually, whenever they release that script extender, I'm going to be all over it. But in the meantime, this graphical setup suits me just fine. I hope that you guys found at least one mod that you can add to your load order, or at the very least were slightly amused by this video. Make sure to check the description if you want to download any of these mods. I have a list of them right there. And of course, if you do download them and you enjoy them, please make sure to endorse them. It's a really good way to tell a mod author that they're doing a great job. And if you want to tell me that I did a great job, then you can hit the thumbs up button if you would like. Basically, if you want me to make more compilations, then liking the video is how you tell me that you want it. And for more videos, please make sure to subscribe to this channel. It focuses on Skyrim and Fallout and sometimes a couple other games here and there. And there's a really good companion video for this particular mod list. It focuses entirely on gameplay. It's called The Best Skyrim Mods of All Time. So if you're looking for more, check it out. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.